If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedman.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is Mike Rayburn. Mike is a Hall of Fame speaker and two-time TEDx presenter who inspires a new mindset and real solutions for organizations who want to elevate, innovate, and transform. Mike's solutions are bold, effective, and proven. The true inspiration, however, stems from Mike's experiential approach. He uses a top-notch guitar and humor to craft transformative programs. He's been showcased at Carnegie Hall and highlighted in Las Vegas. He's a speaker colleague and a dear friend. Mike, what an absolute pleasure it is to welcome you to the show, and thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Oh, Susan, thank you so much. I am more than honored to be here. We've known each other and worked together so much. I'm just floored that you would allow me to share with you, to have a little conversation.
Well, you're just so brilliant in so many different ways. And of course, I've known you first and foremost as an entertainer, a virtuoso guitarist, and now you've just changed and elevated your programming to transformations, and you offer incredible transformative solutions to your corporate clients. Now, as you know, you and I were talking prior to the show, our authors are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. They've got a book. Right. They're looking to get out there and promote themselves. What are some of the ways that you might recommend in terms of maybe even changing their mindset so they can stand out from the crowd? Because this is what they want to do. They want to stand out and be noticed.
It's a great question. Obviously, whether you were talking about a book or we're talking about a professional speaker or a musician or any kind of an artist especially, or just any kind of a business, what you're looking for is your uniqueness. What I really get tired of reading or hearing is when someone comes along and it's a new book and I'll open it up and they basically say something that I read in Think and Grow Rich or I read in The Success Principles by Canfield. So what I encourage, first of all, approach, love, and embrace your uniqueness and what you bring to the table that no one else does, your thought leadership. Now, thought leadership is not regurgitating what you heard. Thought leadership means taking what you've heard. I mean, obviously, those feed what we do, and bringing your own take on it, bringing your own presentation to it. And that almost always comes from your uniqueness. One of the things I point out in my programs is that I still get people who come up and say, I heard what you said about we're all creative, and I'm not really creative. I'm not worried about it. And this is politically incorrect, but most of them work with numbers. Just saying. And it's patently false. We're each creative. The key is every one of you listening right now is creative in a different way than everyone else. My wife and I, Kimberly, we run these what if weekends. And one of the questions that we ask, and you'll learn about what if in just a little bit, is what is it that you do better than anyone on this planet? Or said another way, what is it that you and you alone can do? And every one of you has an answer to that question. Every one of you has something that you do better or differently or in a unique way other than anyone on this planet. And quite often it'll be a combination of things. So look there, there's certain people who are, somebody's just one of the best country singers ever. Okay. And that's what they bring to the table. However, mine was never a one thing. Mine is a combination. And I'm not bragging to say this because every single one of you listening has one. Mine is that I tell people, because I use guitar and comedy to teach innovation, creativity, and change. I call myself a keynote artist. I also will point out that I'm not the greatest guitarist in the world. I'm not the greatest speaker in the world. And I'm not the greatest comedian in the world. I am, however, the greatest combination of all three of them. Now, I'm also the only combination of all three of them. So it's a small category. But that's also what you want to become. You want to become a category of one. So I would say that's first of all. And second of all, don't be afraid to highlight what might be a little contradictory or a little controversial or a little contrarian in what you do. I'm blessed to have a great friend who most of you will know. His name is Dr. John Gray. He wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Well, he and I were talking about this 2 weeks ago, about how when he came out with that in 1979, it was revolutionary to say that we were different, to say that we responded different ways. And he got on these talk shows. Back then it was Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael and some of those, if you remember those. And they would actually set up ambush interviews where he didn't know that all these three people are coming on to refute what he's saying. And he basically won. And the key there, takeaway I want you to get from that, is that he did something that was boldly different. That's how he stood out. So even if you have something, for instance, my program is called What If? If you were to throw it into a category, there's plenty of speakers who speak on, hey, you have unlimited potential, the sky's the limit. I'm in that category, if you were to put it that way. However, my whole take on how to use the question, what if, my presentation using guitar and comedy rather than PowerPoint and statistics, and then taking that and making it a book, those make me stand out. So that's what you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Oh, it certainly does. That uniqueness, as you said. And just before you said the words category of one, I wrote down category of one and I was like, oh, he stole my words. You read
really?
my mind.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We've got to give Joe Calloway the credit for that. Any event, your uniqueness and being different and doing something that you do best. There, I feel that often people get stuck. Just because I can do something, I automatically think, oh, well, if I can do it and I find it easy, well, everybody does because it's so easy to do. However, that is definitely a flaw in that thinking because not everybody can do what you do, even though you think it's simple.
Yes. You just defined what's one of my daily challenges is I quite often assume, just as you said, if I can do it easily, then that means everyone else can. So I need to find something that's hard and then I'll do that. When actually identifying what comes easily to you, yet others have challenges with or don't do as well, that's a good place to look for your uniqueness. For instance, my wife, Kimberly, on one hand, she's one of the most creative people I've ever known. She has the rare combination of being extremely creative and extremely linear thinking, a left brain. She can organize anything. She was an executive assistant for 2 financial advisors. So she knows organization and linear thinking. Organizational approach, it just comes natural to her. She doesn't have to think about it. It just flows. And it just doesn't from me. And so find that thing that you just find is so easy and others look at, for instance, for me, one of the things I do is I'll do like country versions of non-country artists, or I'll do Bob Marley sings Garth Brooks. I'll do like mashups, but they're not electronic like DJs do. I'm the electronics. It's the human mashup. And so I will do some of those artists. And one of the things I do is I'll sing the top 8 songs of the 1980s, all to the tune of Every Breath You Take. So I'm playing Every Breath You Take and I'm singing, Don't Stop Believing and Born in the USA and Want to Dance with Somebody. And they all fit to that. And to me, it's easy. I hear those songs and I hear how they go together and I don't even think twice about it. So at first I thought, well, I can't do that because that's just too easy. No, that's my uniqueness. That's what I can do that a lot of other people can't. One of the things you might do is to discover this is ask your friends, the people who've got your back, the people who support you. Ask them, what is it you see me doing easily that others find difficult? What is it that you always look to me for an answer for? And you might already know that. That's at least one place to start looking.
Yes. Asking someone else because they see you very differently than you see yourself. And we're often, and I'm speaking from experience, very critical of ourselves, whereas other people, as you say, they see us in a different light. Oh, I always come to you because I know you've got the answer to X, or you're going to think of something creative where I might not see the wood for the trees, so to speak. Right. So I love that, asking somebody else for help to see you differently, see yourself differently, your blind spots.
Right. Yeah. What you don't see about yourself. Exactly. Because really, our true selves, on one hand, there's things that each of us knows about ourselves that no one else does. And we know that that's true. And that's just plain the way it is. And there are certain things that everyone outside of us sees and we don't. And so the reality of who we are is somewhere in between there. And I'll give you an example. I always knew that my gifts were with music, with entertainment, with comedy, with, I won't call it wordsmithing, but I do have an ability with the language. And a friend of mine, I was in this little spiritual group, Christian group, and we were talking about our gifts and talents. And I said, well, these are mine. And I was done. And one of my best friends, in fact, he's the godfather of my son, a guy named Mark Hollingsworth, said, well, Mike, I think your gift is exhortation. And I said, great. What's that? I'd never even heard the word. If you look it up, it means to strongly encourage, to uplift, to equip. The way he said it to me was, Mike, I've seen you for years. It matters to you that the people around you do better. And when he said it, I almost cried because he nailed something that was true about me. And when he said it, I knew it was true about me, but I had not realized it. And really, that's what I do now as a speaker. I'm combining those guitar and comedy skills and the ability to talk on stage. And now I'm using it to uplift people, to equip, to exhort, it would be the word. And so he knew something about me that was not just something that he saw as an ability, but it was like foundational to the gifts that God gave me when I was born. So ask, you might be surprised what you find.
Yes, very much so. I love that example. The idea of wanting to help others, and I know you do this so well now in your virtuoso retreats. I'd love you to focus on something that you mentioned earlier too, and that is your whole what if strategy, philosophy. Talk to us about that, because I think that could be super applicable to our listeners.
Sure. The basic way I set it up when I share this, because this is the foundational message that I have in pretty much every presentation that I do, is that, first of all, the foundational cognizant thought is questions. Our brains are asking and answering questions literally thousands of times a day. And so the way we program, in fact, the first thought, if you read, the great philosophers, all of them basically agree that the first human thought was a question. It was actually a doubt. Do I exist? They consider that to be the first thought that any human ever thought. And so, do I exist? Questions are how we program the brain. The challenge is most of us ask really unempowering questions like, what's on TV? And I just share that my favorite question is, what if? Every time you ask the question, what if we could do that? What would it look like? I know we never have, but, or what if I did that? Or what if I'm the one to figure this out? You open up the possibilities. The challenge is that we all have the naysayers. We have the negative folks who throw a wet blanket on new ideas. You can't do that. It's going to cost too much money. Or my favorite, we've never done it that way before. So the way I handle it is this, because I'm an artist. I live on ideas. I love ideas. I try to teach audiences how to discover and voice their own ideas. And so I'll get these crazy ideas. I did the first ever cross-country concert tour on bicycle, riding from San Diego to Brooklyn. I did a performance of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony based on two guitars, a duet, and I played both of them. One of them was my hologram, which appeared on stage next to me. So I do weird ideas, right? I know this one person in my life would be the one to say, Mike, that's crazy. You don't have enough time for that. Or why are you, no one's going to care about that. And here's what I do. I say, you're right. But what if we could? How would we do it? I know it's probably not even going to happen. It's probably crazy. It's probably just not. But what if I did? Or maybe like we discovered during COVID, what if I absolutely had to, and I never have before, and it seems impossible? What if I had to? How would I do it? And what that does is it oversteps any of the fears, any of the objections, any of the obstacles, and allows you to pursue like, well, what if we did try this? And there's two powers to this. One, it doesn't mean you're going to do it. Whatever this new idea, let's say this just came to mind, like you're going to do a book and it's about training and nutrition and physical health. So you've decided to do what I did, to ride a bicycle across the country and do a book tour. Okay. What if we could do that? The key there in the beginning is that the lack of commitment to the outcome is essential at the beginning of a new idea. Why? Because if there's nothing on the line, if there's no consequences at that moment, absolutely anything is possible. And that's where I want every one of your listeners, me, I try to do this, all of us, to start. The key is to be willing to set aside the old thinking, the old paradigm, the old way, step into the new and say, well, what if I did this? And for the skeptics, there's a safety net here. The old thinking is still there. You could pick it up again. The key is to not be so attached to or married to or confined by the old way of doing things, the traditional way of doing things. I mean, Susan, you did this with your trade show book. Okay. You did something. No one had done that. No one had thought to go, hey, I'll go to this company who can, fish for whales rather than minnows. When you first had the idea, you just entertained it. And then you saw that it had legs, so you acted on it. In fact, I'll put it this way. Every major accomplishment, invention, or unlikely victory in human history started in some way or another with a bold what if question. 150 years ago, what if we could fly? 60 years ago, what if we could walk on the moon? More recently, pick up your cell phone. What if we could hold all the world's knowledge in our hands? Those were what if questions that whether they knew they were asking that or not, that's what went through their minds. And so that's like, well, then why are we not, especially as entrepreneurs, especially when it can feel like the world's against you. It can feel like, oh, there's so many books written. Why is anybody going to read mine? Well, what if they could? What if you could get them to do that? What would you have to do to make that happen? Does that make sense?
Oh, without any shadow of a doubt. Now, what was going through my mind as you were talking about the naysayers and the skeptics was not the outside world, but the inside one. The head trash that goes on, the imposter syndrome,
yes.
Well, I tried that, or, oh, I don't know if I could do that, or, whatever other nonsense goes on in the brain that really helps stand in the way of making those bold moves.
Right. A couple points about that. First of all, just to dispel imposter syndrome. If you have imposter syndrome, it means you're not one. Real imposters don't get imposter syndrome. They know they're imposters, okay? So I remember hearing Joe Walsh, the lead guitarist of the Eagles, who also did his own songs, with James Gang and Life's Been Good to Me So Far, some of those hits. He's one of the great guitarists of all time. He, to this day, will say he keeps thinking someday somebody's going to see behind and realize he's really not that good. He just kind of faked his way through it. Okay. That's imposter syndrome. Well, he's not an imposter. True imposters don't get it. They're trying to be something that they're not. You're not doing that. Nobody listening to this is doing that. So that's the first thing about imposter syndrome. Second thing, what you just described there, Susan, is what I would call the negative what ifs, because I've had people confront me on this. Okay. You talk about what if we could, and these positive what ifs that open up possibilities. What about the people who walk around going, what if there's an earthquake? What if I lose my job? What if she says no? What if my book doesn't sell? What if I invest money and it doesn't work? What if I blah, 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 blah. Okay. Here's the thing. There's value in that. All you have to do is get rid of the negativity to it, the worry side of it. What you've done is asked a very valid question. What if it doesn't sell? What are you going to do? That's a good question to answer. The people who are most successful are the ones who answer tomorrow's questions today. Okay. They solve tomorrow's problems today. And so when you have a negative what if, get rid of the negativity side of it and just take it out and say, well, yeah, let's see. What if I don't get the job? Well, I could go to some other place and try. I could learn a new skill. I could, start solving that problem. Number one, it gives you some very valid information. And number two, it protects your downside so that you don't have that negativity rolling around in your head. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. It's so funny as you were saying that, and, answer tomorrow's problems like today. That was a throwaway line. And I'm like, okay, Mike, that was so poignant. And it was just like a throwaway line. Oh, yeah, let's answer tomorrow's questions today. Like anyone can do that.
Yes. For instance, right now, I'm asking what if questions about AI, and I can solve some of them. One of the great what if questions about AI is like, what if AI now replaces speakers and replaces writers? Well, first of all, for a speaker, nothing will ever replace the beauty, the power, and the simplicity of one person in front of a group of others imparting some thought or feeling or entertainment. That will always have magic, and no AI will ever do that. Number two, I think AI right now is a kick in the butt to be more creative, because that's what it can't do. It can draw from the creativity that's been out there, but it cannot draw from anything new. It can put some ideas together that may not have been based on your question that you ask ChatGPT or whatever. However, out-create the thing, out-create the machine. And you can do that.
Yeah. It's a tool. And if you see it as a tool rather than a threat to your existence, then it's complementary. But it's the same with, when, what was it? The music was put on in your iPods and musicians were like, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to get any more gigs. Well, that's nonsense. As you said.
Correct.
The live, you can't replace live.
Right. I've got a friend named Dan Burris, who's the one who taught me that whole point about the people who are most successful are the ones who will solve tomorrow's problems today. He also talked about AI. And the number one question he gets, because he's a technology futurist. He teaches about the future of technology and he's world class. He's one of the top influencers on LinkedIn and best-selling author. And Daniel Burris, look him up. One of the points he makes about AI is that the number one question people ask is AI going to replace humans? And the answer is no. Humans with AI are going to replace humans. So in other words, AI has been around at this moment for about 9 months as a practical tool. So imagine the internet in 1995. That's where we are. Amazon had not been created yet. eBay had not been created yet. Google had not been created yet. Okay. Those are all your opportunities right now. If you're an entrepreneur, AI is where it's all going. The guy I heard speak about this recently, because I've been digging into this, made the point that the Industrial Revolution created millionaires. The dot-com and technology revolution created billionaires. He said, AI is going to create trillionaires because you can do so much with it in such little time. So the key there is to look at it as the internet in 1995. What would you do now? Well, shoot, I wish I'd learned how valuable a website was going to be, how valuable e-commerce was going to be, how valuable a search engine is going to be. Do you realize Yahoo had everything that Google did? They just didn't realize that it was that valuable. And so Google perfected search. Yahoo was actually better at it in the beginning. They just didn't know how important it was going to be. So anyway, they can sound a little scary, but shoot, those are opportunities. Dig into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Opportunities. That's what marketing is all about. It's like taking these and looking at things differently and asking, as you rightly said, those what if questions. And Mike, that's a great segue into how people can find out more about your brilliance and tap into some of your resources. So take it away.
Well, the easiest way is to go to MikeRayburn.com. And I'll do two things. One of them is standard, and one of them I'll just do for your audience. I have something called the What If Weekly, which is essentially a blog. I make it fun and entertaining and short and to the point. I don't know if you noticed, but my attention span, squirrel, I jump around. The What If Weekly is I send it out on either Tuesday or Wednesday each week. And it gives you another little way to look at things differently, a tool to apply, a way to use the question, what if, something to keep you moving forward. And it's usually 500 or 600 words. It's short and to the point. Go to my website, which is MikeRayburn.com. That's MikeRayburn.com. And you'll see free What If Weekly sign up, or I forget exactly what it looks like on the homepage. I don't go to my own website that often. That's an immediate resource you can use, and it's absolutely free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. And I'm pretty consistent on keeping that going. The other opportunity, as Susan well knows, my wife and I run something called the What If Weekend, which is where we're going to what if your life. We divide it into it's 3 full days, and you actually stay at our house. We have a retreat space on the first floor. It's never more than like 6 people, 7 people, 5 people sometimes. What we do is we what if your life. 3 days, they're divided into 3 D words. The first day is discovery, where we're going to look at your gifts, talents, and passions. Create a vision for what you really want to do, what you want to do with your book, what you want to do with your career, all the ways you can run with it. The second day is called disrupt, because all of us have limiting beliefs, toxic thoughts, toxic people in our lives that we need to get rid of. And so we go through a process of that, and we go deep. We get in there. And then the third day, so we got discover, disrupt. The third day is design, because we want to leave with a plan. We leave with a long-term plan. Yes, that's a general plan. We're going to leave, though, the most important thing is a 90-day plan, because what concerns me in every presentation, every retreat, everything I do is, yes, what I do in the moment, like right now. It's more important to me, or just as much, what you're going to do with it on Monday morning when you get home, And so we want a 90-day plan that starts first week. And so that's what you do. And if that sounds at all of interest to you, I'm going to offer you a complimentary 30-minute Zoom call with me. We'll just talk about what your what ifs are, what you want to do with your book, what you want to do as an entrepreneur. If there's some way I can help. Number one, I'm going to give you value from it. I'm going to give you some kind of my own take on it. And I hope that that's generally tended to be valuable for a number of people. And if for some reason the what if weekend makes sense for you, we can explore that too. Either way, you're going to end up with value. And quite honestly, it's 30 minutes, but we usually go a little over that. The way to do that, if that's of any interest, is to email me. And I'm going to give you this is my personal email. This is not my team. No one else gets this. It's Mike@MikeRayburn.com. That's MikeRayburn.com. If you'll email me and say, I heard you with Susan, I will send you a link and you can sign up on my Calendly. And I have some free time in September. So that's coming up.
Well, that is so generous, Mike. And listeners, I highly, highly recommend that you take Mike up on this offer. That's quite something. Thank you. And Mike, we always end off asking our guests to leave us with a golden nugget, some words of wisdom. What are yours?
I thought about that. And I think what I'm going to say is something that I used for myself, because I found myself as an entertainer in so many adverse situations, playing in bars where they're not listening, playing in the cafeteria of a community college at noon, places some of them ended up being intimidating. I don't need to go into all that. The temptation when you get like that is maybe I should switch and do something that I think they're going to like. Or maybe I should switch and try this or whatever. And I would tell myself over and over again, here's the words: do what you do it the best way you know how. Do what you do it the best way you know how. Because ultimately, you bring something to the table that no one else does. And the fact is, if we're all different, that means you have something we lack and we need it. The world needs it. You probably have a message that the world needs to hear, or a take on things that people need to hear. Okay. So do what you do it the best way you know how.
Yeah. That gave me goosebumps as you said that. It's so poignant. Yes. Just do us. Do what we do and what we do best. Mike, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I really appreciate you taking the time. And by the way, listeners, if your book isn't selling the way you wanted or expected to, let's jump on a quick call together to brainstorm ways to ramp up those sales, because you've invested a whole lot of time, energy, and money, and it's time you got the return that you were hoping for. So go to brainstormwithsusan.com to schedule your free call. In the meantime, I hope this powerful interview sparks some ideas you can use to sell more books. So until next week, here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.